Okay, welcome to our session on coaching. So good to have you guys here in this nice AC'd room. Yeah, it's gonna be a good time. Anyway, I'm gonna give you just a little bit of introduction into how I got into coaching, and then I'm gonna speak, and Delyn's gonna speak, and Abby, my wife, is gonna share a testimony about coaching as well. What's that? Mrs. Truell's gonna speak. It's gonna be great, Ms. Truell. We'll have a good time. So basically, this is how Abby and I got into coaching. We went to Pioneer, New Mexico State University. We became lead directors for the first time. And if I could be completely transparent with you, basically this was my attitude before we got there. We kind of felt very proud of ourselves that we thought we knew everything there was to know about leadership and planning Chi Alphas and so on and so forth. So we kind of thought, if we just do A, B, and C, this Chi Alpha is going to be great. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. I can't believe no one has ever thought about doing A, B, and C before. And sure enough, we get to New Mexico State University, we do A, B, and C. It doesn't work out how we planned. We have regression, like we learn how to suffer and so on and so forth. And you realize all of your plans are wonderful until you actually have to implement them, right? And then you realize something might be broken, and then you really have to consider that you might be broken. So that's kind of how we got into coaching. Before we started being lead directors, we had so many answers. After we became lead directors, we realized we really have so many questions. And coaching was a process where we met with a person about once a month, and he would say, well, what do you want to work on today? And I would say, I have no idea how to turn Christians into a cohesive group, and how do you get Christians to become a team? I thought because we all love Jesus and came from the same campus, we would all love each other and default get along, but that was not the case. It is possible to have a common purpose with an uncommon understanding, right? So that got us into coaching, and that helped us answer a few questions. New Mexico State was not Sam Houston State University, so he helped me understand what does it mean, what does it look like to make disciples, and what does small group look like in the desert, which is radically different than the Bible Belt. You see what I'm saying? So basically, there's a whole the process of coaching for me helped me answer all the questions I found myself having, which I thought improved our ministry. It improved us as leaders, and it helped us be able to go further faster. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense? The book of Romans says a spiritual gift is leadership. Apostle Paul specifically says, if this is your gift, may you govern diligently. And coaching was something that helped us learn how to govern diligently, right? So, all right. That's my testimony. Here's my first point. One of my favorite people in the world, I mentioned him earlier today, is Jason Bell. He's one of the directors at Sam Houston State Chi Alpha. At Sam Houston, we have what we fondly call Chi Alpha-isms. Perhaps you've heard of those. They're convictions that are repeated frequently in portable, memorable ways. One such statement is love finds a need and meets it. Simple as that. Love finds a need and meets it. One semester in particular, Jason would repeat this Chi Alpha-ism to the small group leaders that he was discipling. He would lead discussions about how love finds a need and meets it in his resource group. He would preach love finds a need and meets it from the pulpit in his large groups. He would get his guys to read books and articles and listen to other sermons, all articulating the principle that love finds a need and meets it. This principle was hit on more than once that semester. And at the end of the semester, one of the small group leaders he was discipling walked into his office to have a meeting. The small group leader sat down across from Jason and began to explain to him with much excitement and enthusiasm how great his devotional time was that day, specifically sharing how Jesus spoke to him and told him something that he had never, ever heard before, how love finds a need and meets it. And then began to ask Jason, why have we never preached this in Chi Alpha? We need to start discipling this and preaching this and put it on everything and so on and so forth. Jason's jaw dropped, of course, at the audacity of such a statement, and although he was frustrated with the disciple who seemingly forgot all that was taught him, he could not possibly justify the frustration because finally, and this happens to every one of us, finally, the disciple had crossed a line from someone else's information into his own conviction. You know what I mean? And until that line is crossed, truth is just forgettable theory, right? So this is the first point. It is personal transformation that transforms, it's personal revelation that transforms a speaker's information into the listener's conviction. It is personal revelation that transforms the speaker's information into the listener's conviction. Personal revelation is the difference between obligation and ownership. People own what they discover themselves. For example, Paul heard information about Jesus from one of the greatest sermons ever preached in the New Testament by Stephen, but it was not until he had an encounter with Christ through lightning and thunder that he said, "Who are you, Lord?" It took personal revelation of Jesus on the road to Damascus to turn information about Jesus into conviction in Jesus. For Thomas, he did not believe his brothers when they said Jesus had risen, but when Jesus walked into the room, when he put his fingers into Christ's hands, his only response was, "My Lord and my God." It took personal revelation of the risen Jesus to transform information about Christ into conviction of Christ for Thomas. So what does this mean for leading small group leaders or leading staff? What does this mean for influencing and helping people? People own what they discover themselves. So when it comes to navigating challenges, or cultivating convictions, or finding solutions, we will do our people a favor if we help them discover what is true as opposed to merely telling them what is true. Does that make sense? The best way to do this is through an art called coaching. So let me clarify. This word coaching stems from the profession of life coaching. This is what Chi Alpha is beginning to develop for Chi Alpha Nation, and this is a very different process from counseling. Where counseling is one person telling another person what to do, coaching is helping another person see on their own what must be done. Make sense? The end result of counseling is someone leasing information being given to them, but the end result of coaching is someone owning ideas that they personally discovered. We're dealing with people who have eyes, but they can't see. We're dealing with people who have ears, but they need help hearing. We're dealing with people who get confronted with decisions to be made on a daily basis that will affect them for years to come. The people we minister to find themselves asking, what does God want me to do after college? Am I supposed to be working in this job? Should I date this person? How do I make my unhappy marriage happy again? How do I know what God's will is for my life? How do I serve a pastor I don't agree with? So on and so forth. You've heard these questions. We're always trying to answer these questions. Identity, philosophy, and methodology issues will be encountered by leaders and the people they're discipling. Coaching is simply helping people discern what's happening in their lives, discover what needs to be done to have resolution, and decide how to work towards it. Simple as that. So here are two basic principles to help us coach one another. The first is called listen, learn, and lead. Listen, learn, and lead. If we learn to listen first and speak later, which could be a very huge temptation for us, but if we learn to listen first and speak later, we're going to gather enough information from our people to discern what's really going on in their scenarios. And more importantly, if we listen first and speak later, we're going to discern the deep-rooted source behind these scenarios that's directing them. Coaching, it's not just about identifying symptoms. This is about diagnosing problems to work towards a solution. Like helping a staff member discern why they are always at odds with their teammates and what they can do to fix it, or helping someone improve their ministry by changing a method. I've had to coach a student who just did not understand why going from the marketplace from campus was such a huge jump for a small group leader. And you have to help explain to them through questions. Basically, you realize that a small group leader who doesn't have a job, doesn't have a family, all these guys can hang out with you till 2 a.m. But as soon as you enter the marketplace, I had to help coach this young man, 22 years old. He didn't understand why all these 30, 40, and 50-year-olds with 401ks and kids at home weren't hanging out with him, till 2 a.m. on a Monday night. You know what I mean? So you have an opportunity to say, well, this is why. Or you can basically say, let me ask you something, my friend. If you're a husband and you got wife and kids at home, do you think you're a good husband or a bad husband if you're missing 5 nights out of the week? So on and so forth. You get the idea. So this is the point. If we listen to our people, we will learn what they need and desire, which will help us lead them accordingly. Now, in order to do this, we have to have the humility that believes they are the expert of their own lives, not us. I think that's the prerequisite to being a pastor. I really do. I think we got to have the humility of mind that really views other people as better than ourselves. You know what I mean? What the Apostle Paul just preached in Philippians. If we're going to listen, learn, and lead, we got to have humility that believes other people are experts of their own lives, not me. But this can't happen without a second component of coaching, which can be found in the questions of Jesus. Jesus asked many questions. To Peter, he said, "Do you love me?" To the disciples, he asked, "Who do you say that I am?" To the impotent man, he said, "Do you want to be made whole?" If Jesus is all-knowing, then why ask a question if the basis of a question is about the asker gaining knowledge they do not presently have? There are only two logical conclusions for the questions of Jesus. Either one, Jesus is not all-knowing and therefore not God, or two, Jesus is all-knowing. And he's not asking the question so he can have a personal revelation of reality, but so the person being asked the question can have a revelation of reality. When Adam sinned by eating the forbidden fruit, he hid from God. God's first question to Adam is, "Where are you?" Not so God could find out where Adam is, but so Adam could realize where he is, hidden from the presence of the God he belongs with. When Jesus asked the impotent man, "Do you want to be made whole?" it was Jesus illuminating to the heart of a sick person who's had hope deferred. Do you want self-depreciation or do you still want self-realization? You can't have both. The more questions Jesus asked, the more people being asked were placed in a scenario of self-evaluation, and honesty was always the product. An honest interpretation of reality is always the prerequisite to repentance and restoration. The best way, then, to help our people solve their problems is to ask more questions while giving less answers. Does that make sense? You guys with me? I'm not saying preaching has no place for Jesus preached. I'm not saying teaching has no place for Jesus teached. I'm simply saying Jesus asks questions because he knows people own what they discover themselves. Asking questions is just a tool that needs to be added to our belt. So when it comes to good questions, here are three different types. Type number one is the open-ended question. The open-ended question. This produces a real response as opposed to instinctive rhetoric. You know what I mean. Do you feel CMC has helped you? Produces an almost robot response. Yes or no, that's kind of it. But how has CMC helped you can actually produce elaboration and evaluation. Do you want to leave your campus better than when you found it? Produces a one-word answer. But what are you going to do to leave a legacy? Produces something entirely different. Does that make sense? In a society that does not take much time to think anymore, the open-ended question can cultivate a thought life. The second type of question is the other window. The other window. This question takes people from their current perspective into someone else's in an effort to increase their vision and better their judgment. Basically, the other window question can reduce blind spots. So, for example, I don't know about y'all's staff meetings, but our staff meetings, we have this nasty habit where ideas can be advertised more than they're analyzed. You know what I mean? A coach's job is to help someone see a full picture by using a different perspective. So one year, we had a person on staff who wanted our leadership training class to have a retreat where we took our college students to downtown Albuquerque, New Mexico, where real life Breaking Bad happens, take their cell phones so they can't communicate, and their money so they have no provision, and then pick them up 3 days later so they can learn to trust in God in undesirable circumstances. Now that seems absurd, right? But coaching is kind of understanding that not everyone is self-aware. You know what I mean? You kind of have to bring sobriety with coaching. So the coaching session kind of had one simple question that it at least began with. Hey, think about this for a moment. If you are the parent of an 18-year-old girl in our leadership training class, and Chi Alpha did this to your daughter, believing it was for her development, how would you respond? So you see what I'm saying? Sometimes the other window questions involve a lot of follow-up, but you get the idea. A different perspective can lead to better judgment, which leads to better questions. That makes sense? I think this could help us interpret whoever is in charge of us incredibly well. Eli Gotra would say it like this. He thinks leadership is like this mountain, and the further you get up the mountain, of course, the better you can see. And I think Eli is just the most humble man on the face of the earth. But he says this. He says, when you're in the front lines, you're fighting around, and your general gives you a command. You're like, I can't believe he's asking us to do that. Does he not see that we got enemies to our left and our right? But he says, if you trust your general who's a little further up the mountain, you realize he sees a flank coming from over here, and if you guys don't take care of that, we're all going to die. You know what I mean? The other window is basically believing if you are the expert of your life and not me, then perhaps I can help you out. But it's also believing if I could just get you out of your perspective, if I could help you see from a different side of the mountain, maybe you seeing the rest of the geography could help improve your decision making. Does that make sense? All right. So this is the last type of question I got for you. The end result question. The end result question. This takes people away from where they are, and it shows them what they could be, all in an effort to help them find a needed variable for a desired outcome. Let's take support raising, for example. This is I don't know about you guys, but support raising for me is always a season where my cup gets knocked over. And then I realize that I have a lot more acid than honey than I would prefer. And so there's always a lot of repenting before Jesus with that. So I suppose that's the best thing for my soul. But support raising can also, besides just knocking over acid and making you repent, it can bring paralysis. Do you know what I mean? Some missionaries, like I've dealt with people that have had nervous breakdowns over support raising. So for an example, a support raising season, we could say something like this. If you got a missionary that's just stuck, they're afraid, and maybe that could be you. I really don't know. But if you got someone who's stuck, they're afraid, they don't want to make any more phone calls. The end result question would kind of go something like this. I know support raising is scary because asking people for money can be scary. But when you see yourself with a fully funded budget, what do you see happening in your life? If you're married, if you're dating, what does date night look like now? Are you living in the home you desired, being fully funded? How fast until you are finally debt-free if you are fully funded? What are the dreams that fully funded can turn into reality? This does something to a person because failure and frustration, a study said that vision lasts about 30 days. Isn't that crazy? Vision. Why we do what we do and who we do it for lasts for 30 days, which means if we're not replenishing our vision every 30 days or within those 30 days, we're going to forget what we are doing, and equally important, we're going to forget who we are. That's really scary. So when you're dealing with missionaries during support raising and they haven't been able to raise a budget, they haven't made a phone call in over 30 days or whatever it might be, they might be forgetting what they're doing, and what's worse is they might be forgetting who they are. You with me? Have you ever honestly felt like this during support raising? Lord knows we have. Every one of us has. The end result question takes you out of your current circumstances and brings you back to where you want to be, your destiny, your vision, where you want to go. It revisits the entire thing, and that hopefully, ideally, can reproduce fresh fire and fresh wind in someone. That makes sense? So this is the end result question. It takes people out of what they're doing and brings them back to why they are doing it in the first place, leading to new inspiration or improvement. This is a very small snapshot of coaching regarding its purpose and regarding some of its questions. I'm going to hand it over to Delyn Cole, our National Coaching Director, and take us the rest of the way.
I have no idea how to get this screen working. Does someone in the room know how to do it? We had a guy that was supposed to be here doing it. So what is it? Is it just me? I just have to do it? Oh, see, here he comes. Colton's doing it. Thank you. This is you've just seen my weaknesses right there. Just there. They're right there. Hey, thank you for coming to this session. Hey, wanted to let you know that there are a couple more chairs up front. They are special chairs. Gary Miller, your name is on one of them. And Julia Woolley, yours is on the other one. They are rocking chairs. Please come forward and you can sit down in these very special chairs. Hey, just while they're coming forward, what is something that Alex said that you heard? I'm not asking for the words he said. I'm asking for the underlying thing that he said. Someone pop up and tell me what they heard.
Yeah.
Stand up and say it. Yep.
Students are gonna own and internalize something that they discover way more than us.
Great. Someone else, what did you hear Alex say? Okay, got to stand and say it so we can hear it.
Bring them to the realization that they are the expert.
Okay, great. One other thing that Alex said that was that you heard. Vision only lasts 30 days. Awesome. That's great. Well, this breakout is really a breakout about Christian coaching. There is a lot of other coaching that happens in the world, life coaching, sports coaching, lots of different kinds of coaching. This is really Christian coaching. What makes it Christian coaching is we ask the Holy Spirit to help us along the way. Just like in a mentoring conversation, in a discipling conversation, in a counseling conversation, we're asking Jesus and the Holy Spirit to participate in the conversation. It's like a triangle where we're in one corner, the person being coached is in the other corner, and the Father is up above, and we are trying to connect the Father and the person being coached. We are not really a part of it. That's what the process of Christian coaching really is. So I just want to make that distinction today. Wanted to share a little bit about my story, how I got in coaching, because I don't even know how it all happened other than it just was a process. Started in 1988, you guys heard Vic and Kathy Veris mention today that they helped pioneer the University of Oregon. That was my husband and I. In 1988, stepped in. We were youth pastors at a local church. We stepped in and started pioneering the University of Oregon. We were there a couple years until Dick Schroeder invited us to the University of Montana Western in a little town, Delyn, Montana, 5,000. Nathan is here now. Nathan and his wife Katie are here now. They're the campus pastors there. At one point, that campus was the smallest campus that Chi Alpha existed on. So I came from this like nothing town where people said, what good can come from Delyn, right? So my husband and I were there 18 years. We did the local campus for 13 years, and then moved into this district, and then also the area director roles. In 2008, we were invited by Dennis Gaylor, our former national director, to come to the National Ministry Center. Now, at that time, the National Ministry Center, the spouses of those that were invited to come were like not even as high as a church pastor's wife. Like there wasn't a role for you. That wasn't necessarily Chi Alpha's situation. It was just the general council of the Assemblies of God situation. So I came into National Chi Alpha. My husband he was the position that Nathan Cole is currently. He was the operations director. And so, I come in and I'm a nobody. All the only skills I have is I've been mentoring students for the last 18 years. But other than that, I really don't have any other skills in life. So I didn't know what to do but just go to the office with Curtis. And while I got there, work started coming my direction. And I just started doing that work and enjoyed it, and very much enjoyed it. In 2000, prior to us moving there, though, in 2005, I was invited to a coaching class. And I went to the Rocky Mountain District and attended this coaching class where they kind of talked a little bit about what we're going to talk about today. But I did not... I think it affected me a little bit, but I didn't really pursue coaching beyond that moment. But in 2010, Dennis Gaylor asked me to attend a coaching class by an amazing woman named Jane Cresswell. And I want to throw her name out there because she's an outstanding coach. She is a coach by nature and started coaching right out of college, and was coaching so many people in IBM that she ended up starting the whole IBM coaching culture. So she now coaches all of the high-end Fortune 500 company leaders and probably makes a lot more than we do an hour. So But I throw her name out because if you want to read a good book, anything by Jane Cresswell is the book you need to read. So she is the author of Christian coaching. She has written most of the Assemblies of God material on Christian coaching that we're using in our seminaries right now. So she's an amazing missionary to the Fortune 500 companies. In fact, she has recently stepped down from IBM because she was told if she had any more conversions in her coaching in her coaching sessions, that she would be fired. So she was witnessing, and it was coaching was such an evangelism tool for her that. So anyway, now she just charges a lot of money to the individual instead of to the company. So anyway, I took this class and just kept doing the work I was doing. I just kept doing what I was doing and processing many of your guys' applications. If you told me your names, I probably know more about you than you want me to, based on that application. And so anyway, just processed it. Just was doing what I was supposed to be doing in the national office serving. And then Harvey called me one day and said, hey, we really want to continue moving coaching forward. And this was in about 2015. And he said, I'd like you to consider being the coaching specialist. Well, I pushed back on the word specialist, but that's just probably for a lack of confidence than anything. So so I took that role in 2015. It's been a very fun role. I had really very little training at the time and knowing even what I was doing. But I just started taking classes and just started practicing coaching. And that's what I'm hoping that you guys can get from this conversation today is I'm not really a specialist, and I do have certification in coaching now. I just received it about 2 months ago, but it was I've just been doing it. I just practiced it and started practicing it. I just started using some of the tools I'm going to talk to you about today in general conversations. And that's when coaching begins to really take a hold. Let's talk a little bit about coaching and what coaching is. Let me just, not that we needed to see that word, but anyway, coaching is a little bit about drawing out. Okay, so like Alex was saying, if the person being coached, PBC, oftentimes just for short, sometimes we call them a client. That sounds in our circles a little bit too professional or formal, right? But the person being coached, PBC, when that person is the expert, we've got to draw out of them what is in them. That's what the goal is in our coaching sessions. It is assuming that they are the expert in their own life. That is a very difficult switch for us in Chi Alpha because we have conditioned ourselves that we know more than they do. In a mentoring role, that is true, right? Because in mentoring, we are mentoring them in things that we're an expert in. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Also, coaching is having others take responsibility for their own life and their own ideas about where they want to go. Exactly what Alex was saying. They sometimes don't know where they want to go, right? And we get to help them determine where they want to go. But coaching is helping them take responsibility for their own life. You do what you say you're going to do. If you think about a rental car. Who has ever in this room washed a rental car? Who's ever changed? You had to. Oh, no, that's a different story. We're not going there, Gary. For some reason, I'm not surprised. Right there. Who has ever changed the oil in a rental car? Right? You don't take care of a rental car. It's not yours to take care of. You take care of what is yours. What you own, you take care of. And that's a little bit what happens in coaching. We have got to help people own their own stuff so they can be responsible for themselves. You guys, our generation longs for this kind of conversation. You guys know it. They're tired of being told what to do. They're tired of hovering parents, which I have become one, just saying. Coaching is also building needed confidence and providing clarity in the person being coach's mind. This is so important. People, and we know it because we're working with it, sometimes the student that's sitting in front of us just lacks confidence. They lack clarity in what they want to do, and they lack confidence on how to get there. Coaching then is also about then helping them determine what their action is going to be after the coaching session. So what are they going to take? What are they walking away with, and what steps are they going to take to make a difference in the direction of their life? Okay, so we're gonna talk about several things. We're gonna talk about a coaching mindset. We're gonna talk a little bit about skill set, and a lot of times people ask me what is coaching, and I've asked Annabelle Truel. She's taken several coaching classes, and actually four classes, I think, or so. And I just wanted Annabelle to share her story of how she got into coaching, and then also how she's used coaching in the last few years.
Hi, you guys. Wow. It filled up really quick. Good. Me, I grew up in a hovering family, Hispanic hovering family. Plus, I'm a mom and a woman, so my tendencies are that of hovering and taking care and fixing people's problems, and because I want to help them. You know, it's all out of a good heart. But this is who, from a little girl, who I have become and I have been, and I've also been a campus pastor's wife for 33 year. So all of that. It made me, just out of nature and nurture, an over functioner. I wanted to fix everything. My tendencies were that. My natural, that's who I was. So as I went into ministry, as I became a mom, then I continued those wonderful habits, there's some good things to it, and there's not some, it's not also good. So I always wanted to be Johnny on the spot, fix the problems, have the answers, all of this. So as I mentored, and as I mentored with what I had, that's how I did it. And what this does, this over functioner, what it does is that it enables the under functioners, and it doesn't allow them to grow, and it doesn't allow me to grow, either, because I'm always having the answers. I have to have all the answers. So that's how it kind of all started, and how it kind of developed. There you are. Okay. So I'm just going to make this short. So what coaching, I started taking classes. I loved it, and I started saying, whoa, I'm doing this all wrong, or not all wrong, 3/4 wrong, okay? Because I think there's a part, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, mentoring, counseling, coaching, life coaching. Oh my gosh, there's little fine lines between that, and it's kind of like little hats that you put on, but you got to take one off to put another one on, and so it's this game, and in one conversation you can have all three hats. You know what I'm saying? So it's the wisdom of using my hand, sorry. I don't know if y'all can hear me. Y'all can hear me? Okay. And so what it taught me was, first of all, that I don't have to have all the answers. The answers are not all in me. It made me rely on the Holy Spirit. Well, at first it made me shut up so that I could so that I could hear the Holy Spirit, and just that's such a skill. That's such a skill, because we have this heart that wants to develop and wants to, give all the answers, and we want quick answers, and we think, oh, if we give it, then it's gonna. But we know that if it's not theirs, they're not gonna take it, and they're not gonna go with it. It taught me how to help people, young people who come from families who are over assessed, come from parents who are hoverers also, because this is the generation, and parents, they want to help their kids. So it helped me help people assess themselves, which 18-year-olds I mean, none of us. I mean, at 18, what did you think about you? You know, you just walked and you just did whatever you wanted to do and you didn't think about it. And, so then you end up in this problem and you go back and you go, how did that happen? So just, that whole self-assessment part. So it also helped me help people identify their goals. It helped me help them assess where they really are, where they really want to be. And a lot of times this takes a long time because you're asking questions that's taking this out of like this person who doesn't know how to think or even know how to verbalize what's inside of them, so it takes time. So that's another thing that I learned, that it takes time, even longer than what you think, to sit with someone, for them to figure out their life, for them to see the options that they have that they don't even know they have. Okay, so look at this part of life, or your life. How can that help you reach your goal? And just asking good questions, and just prying this out, and just the reliance on the Holy Spirit more than on my knowledge, on my intuition, on my things like that. But knowing, and then also realizing that they have the answers within them. So that's been my journey. I've loved it. It has totally just blown everything that I used to do. And now when I sit with a student, the conversation is totally different. It's just asking questions to draw out what they don't even know that's inside of them, and the answers that they already have that they don't even know that they already have, and just allowing and bringing Jesus into that. That's a real big part, just kind of like, how can I say it, asking them, where is God in your making your decisions? Where is God? So that's kind of like my line that it's kind of like mentoring, coaching, you're not supposed to, but I always bring Jesus into it, because that's the rock that they sit on, and that's the rock that you want them to sit on for the rest of their lives. When they leave you do not want to be their God. You want them to find God, know how to find God, know how to engage God into their problems and into their solutions to their problems in life that will change because seasons change, and just know that's the tool. That's the big tool, is finding Jesus, and letting Jesus be their rock, so that rock, they can carry it for wherever they go.
Thank you, Annabelle. It's been fun to watch Annabelle's journey, because she does do things completely different in how she does her mentoring now, and by bringing in the coach approach to a mentoring conversation. So I would say that Annabelle is not a true coach. She does not follow some of one of the models I'm going to show you later completely, but she is a true mentor coach, where she works this fine line, and it's very helpful, and it's made her more effective. Amazing, after 25 years before you came into coaching. It's just these coaching tools. I'd love to see the younger faces in here, because I know you're going to really enjoy some of these principles we'll continue to talk about. Thanks, Annabelle. It's very important for a coaching conversation for the person being coached to determine where they want to go. So I just want to ask you guys, why did you come? And let me ask it this way. What do you want from this class? 2 or 3 people just pop up and answer that question. What do you want from this class today? Jacob? Okay, great. Yep. Someone else, why did you come to this class? Great, yeah. One more? Okay, great. Yeah, critical thinkers, people that can lead for themselves instead of just reproducing. It's really great. It's exactly what happens in pioneering situations. You take what you know and you try to bring it into a situation. I'm telling you, Texas and Boston are two different locations. If you go to MIT, you get a student for 1 hour a week. You get to choose whether they're going to be in your large group or they're going to go to a small group. You get them for 1 hour. So when Eli said yesterday 20 hours a week is what he required, we did too. We required 15 to 20 hours a week, but you go to MIT, that's not a possibility. So what's going to be the best tool in that moment to get that? What are you going to do with that 1 hour? So that's good. Hey, the word coach actually comes from a town in Hungary called Koch, and they were building carriages. And the carriage I want you to picture in your mind is the carriage that Cinderella went in. You know, the round, with the horse. Yeah, that's the carriage I want you to have in mind. This town, in hundreds of years ago, in the 1700s, they were building these coaches. And a coach is a vehicle that takes you from where you are now to where you want to be. That's what a coach is. And that's what we are describing today. And that's why the title of the class is this way. This is a modern day coach right here. I do have to say I Ubered. This is a Speed the Light. Yeah, I'm saying no, Speed the Light's not probably going to do this one. But I did ride in the fanciest car I've ever ridden in. I can't even tell you what it was on an Uber this week. So I guess Phoenix kind of has to up the Uber game. Other than the Uber I took from the airport was a Dodge Caravan, probably from the 70s, and it did have duct tape on the bumper. But anyway, it's like one of those things. Like, do I really have to get in that one? Anyway, this is a description of a modern day coach. Hey, just looking at this picture right now, where do you think the coach is? In this picture, if you had to put the coach somewhere, where would you put the coach? Say it out loud. The back seat. Why the back seat? Oh, the driver's seat. Why the driver's seat? Okay, good. What's another? Where would someone else put it? The back seat. Why the back seat? Someone. Oh, Katie's like, oh, I should have said that. Okay, she's taken back what she said. What someone that said backseat, why? Nate, did you say it? Oh. Okay, good. What is the person in the backseat actually doing? Navigating. Okay. So we have either the driver, we either have the driver driving the person to where they're going, or we have the person in the backseat navigating, telling them where to go. Let's think about the definition of coach. They're the expert. Where's another option that they could be in this picture? In the trunk. Okay. Maybe the trunk is actually maybe a good place. I want you to consider that where the driver is actually outside of the vehicle. It's a whole different way of thinking about it. The coach is actually outside of the vehicle. I'm just saying, maybe so. And if the coach was outside the vehicle, what would the coach's role be? Say it louder. Opening the door? Okay, to what? Okay, yeah, just opening new doors. Colton, hey, wait, you're not even in this class. You're just like the tech person. I'm kidding you. Go ahead. Okay, observe from different perspectives. Good. What else? Okay, maybe putting gas in the car, which, yeah, maybe just helping motivate, encourage. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, maybe giving some driving directions. Yeah. Okay, good. Okay, great. These are all, one more. That's like, the car broke down. The luxury car broke down. It's going to push it. That's awesome. That's right. So again, I think it's interesting because our mind shift has to happen to make this transition to a coaching culture, and not just a mentoring culture. So I want to pull up the definition of ICF, an ICF definition. ICF stands for International Coach Federation. In Chi Alpha, this is the federation that we are credentialing anybody that wants to receive credentials in. The AG has coaching certification, and then ICF, International Coach Federation, also has certification. This is like a world-known, internationally known company that certifies coaches. So if you have a certification with ICF, it's been a pretty rigorous process that you've had to go through. Harvey Herman told me one time that it's probably equal to a master's degree. I would say maybe a little bit less than a master's degree, but pretty close. It is a process. And I like their definition because we're using it in Chi Alpha, the ICF, just the credentialing process. So let's look at this ICF definition. The definition of coaching is partnering with the person being coached in a thought-provoking and creative process that inspires them to maximize their personal and professional potential. Coaching honors the person being coached as the expert in his or her life and work, and believes every person is creative, resourceful, and whole. Those are very important words. I just want us to look a little bit at partnering with clients. I hate this word client, so we're going to change it to person being coached. So, and I think I did in the definition, didn't I? Yeah. So what is partnering mean to you? What do you guys think partnering with the person that's sitting across with you? What does that mean? Alongside. Okay, good. Okay, say some more. I think say it again so everyone can hear. Okay, figuring out together. Good. Another thought. Yep. Okay, different things are bringing. Yeah, great. They have some thoughts. I have some thoughts. Good. Okay, I didn't see who was saying that. Okay, investing in them. Okay. Other partnering. What's word partnering mean? Common goal. Okay, good. In this case, what do you think the common goal would be? Okay, great. Good. It's really good. So yes, I think all of these have been important. I think that what you said, tell me your name. Matheson. What Matheson said, I think, is really important here in that no one's inferior and no one's superior. It's an equal value. And can be a very difficult thing because we think we have so much wisdom and we have lived so much life and we have been in your shoes as a student and we know what you need to know, that we have this mindset. So I think this is very important in regards to coaching. You have no more knowledge or no more wisdom in their life. They do. If I took my life, I just turned 50 in October. So if I took 50 years of my life and tried to tell you my 50 years, right, it would take me 50 years to explain everything I've been through. There would be no possible way. And some of those that I get to talk to on a regular basis, are getting parts of my 50 years. So, so you have these long. If I put all my 50 years in a box, I could only give you a box that's smaller because I couldn't share all 50 years with you. But in coaching is saying, I want your box to become bigger than my box. So I want to partner with you so that you can move beyond my knowledge and my wisdom because it's who you are. And also part of the coaching process is that that you know more about your life and I know more about my life because I know all of the story. And you guys know when people have given you advice in the past and you're like, well, that doesn't work because, or that doesn't work because, especially I see like mothers' heads, in parenting. Like we give this parenting advice to each other and then And then you're like, well, that doesn't work because my child is strong-willed, or my child is, this way. And it's the same thing with our students. We have a reason of why we can't do it. And that's what we're trying to avoid in a coaching conversation. We're trying to allow them they're the expert. They're the ones that have more knowledge and wisdom in their life. And we have to treat them that way. That's partnering. When we partner with people, we build confidence in them. And it's important. Let's look at thought-provoking process. So we're partnering with a person being coached in a thought-provoking process. What does that mean to you guys, thought-provoking process?
Like someone talked about not a lot of students answering like one word responses or don't really think deeply or reflectively on their life or what's going on in the questions that are asked.
Great. You guys know when you get an answer, when someone asks you a question, you have a real quick answer most of the time, right? And especially when we're trying to figure out what next steps are going to be. Sometimes you just have a quick thing, but you've probably already tried that, right? So in this thought-provoking process, the important thing here is that you dig deeper below the surface. We're not talking about the first thing that you've thought of. We need to provide opportunity and space in the person's world where they are having to dig a little bit deeper into their thinking. So sometimes in a coaching conversation, it can be silent. And sometimes when you're on the phone, it can be a little bit more difficult than when you're doing a face-to-face, because you can see them thinking face-to-face. And when you're on the phone, sometimes you have to be like, are you there? Are you thinking? What's going on? Or when I'm being coached, I'll often say, I need to think about it. Can we just sit for a second so I can process what we're thinking? So it is this deeper level of process. The next word is creative. It's a thought-provoking process that's also creative. What do you think creative means? Okay. Yeah, producing something new, a new thought, a new direction, a new idea. Very good. What's another creative? Yes. Okay. Really great. Mm-hmm. Okay, bring something to light. Mm-hmm. Great. Yeah. Yeah, you guys know creative well. It's providing new clarity. It's providing potentially new motivation. Oh my goodness, how many coaching conversations are about weight loss? We know what to do, right? Stop eating so much food and start exercising more. But how do we get motivated to actually do that? It's a kind of a deeper level conversation in regards to the motivation, but it also provides new determination. Creativity allows for new determination to be brought forth. So that's part of that conversation. Let's look at this a couple more. Maximizing potential. What do you guys think it means there by maximizing potential, their personal and professional potential? Yeah. Absolutely. Yep. What's another maximizing potential? Okay. Yeah. Maybe once they reach the potential they never thought they could reach, their potential was actually further along. Absolutely. Good. Very good thought. Right. Yeah. Very great. Really, very good. There's a scripture about this in Matthew where it talks about the parable of the talents, where God has given everybody a different talent, right? Everyone's unique, and they're been given a different amount of talents. And what we as coaches are doing is drawing out the talent that God has given them. We are not doing cookie cutter. This is not cookie cutter stuff. This is all about finding where their potential is and drawing them out to where they can function the best. Coaching, this one sentence, coaching honors the person being coached as the expert in his or her life. We've already talked about that. Alex did too. So we're just going to move on a little bit. Believes every person is creative, resourceful, and whole. We talked a little bit about creative. It's, again, a mindset that we must have, that the person that's being coached is creative. We don't always believe that, right? So I have a 23-year-old and a 21-year-old. So like it's different with your own kids because I'm still in like parent mode, telling them to make their bed, and sometimes I don't. I find myself with my own kids not seeing. They're not in here, are they? It's like, oh Lord, help me. I didn't just know if one of them snuck in or whatever, but sometimes I don't see them as creative, right? And being able to solve maybe their own problems. Same with students. Do we see people as being creative and have the ability to solve their own problem? What do you think resourceful and whole mean? Yeah, Angie? Good. They're enough. Wow. What a concept to have. They're enough. Dick? Mm-hmm. That's right. Great. Just made that parenting comment earlier. Is all your mothers like hearing that baby crying, and is the advice coming to the surface of your mind? Like, what should you do with that screaming baby? Let's just want to think about this definition. There's a little bit more to the definition that I don't want to bring up, but it's the role of the coach and what the coach looks like, and we've actually talked about. Alex spoke about several of them, and I just So we're just going to stop there. I want to look at. Oh gosh, are we done at 3:15? Okay, we got to keep going here. And I'm going to run by this pretty quickly. I want us just to look at this coaching versus other. I put coaching fields, and that is not correct. Helping fields is what that should be titled. Coaching versus other helping fields. And there are multiple fields that we all know about. I want to look at, first of all, let me start here. The asking and telling, that spectrum. You can be there's helping fields that are very much telling in the process. The conversation is a lot about telling, and there's some helping fields. When I say that, I'm talking about like pastoral counseling, mentoring, discipling, those kinds of other helping type of fields. And we could have high asking or high telling in those areas. Of course, then the other spectrum is where the helper is the expert versus the client being the expert. And that's a little bit about the spectrums there. So we have counselor. We have the best counselor right here, Josh Spurlock. And who went to his class the other day? Yeah, look at the hands. So I think it's fun that there's a connection between counseling and coaching. There's so much similarity and there's so much difference all in the same moment. I feel very inadequate to actually describe coaching in front of Josh. Counseling in front of Josh. But I will say this, for the most part, it is dealing with past behaviors or past issues and wounds and hurts, right? And so coaching is not about past. Coaching is about current, present, and future. So that's just very much a general, and if you went to the counseling class, you would have gotten a lot more from Josh. It's about the past. So when that word we talked about in the definition whole oftentimes means that they've worked through some of their issues of the past. Because you can't move forward in some cases until the past is dealt with. Now, if you're working on an exercise routine, you can have deep wounds in the past that you're still working through, that it's not completely exclusive. You have to work through all of your past before you can be coached. But there are some things in life that can't be coached until the hurt is finished. Boy, we know about this so well in our ministries. The next one is pastoral counseling. I'm quickly going to go through what that basically is a biblical advice. You go to a pastor, you're basically going to get some good biblical advice. Again, I'm very much briefly sharing this. A consultant was, well, let me step back. With the counselor and the pastoral counseling, it is a lot of on the high asking questions. Counselors, they ask a lot of questions. They're listening a lot. But really, for the most part, they were the helper. Would you say that, Josh? You're the helper. Sometimes they give assignments. you need to maybe think about doing this thing and that thing. They know where they need to take you and maybe some tools that are going to help you get there. So they're more on the helper is the expert, but they're still high on the asking. They're listening a lot. In the consultant is more about telling. Now they're going to ask questions, so they're going to be still kind of high on that on the lower quadrant. But they're going to be asking some questions. But the only reason they're asking questions is to get information and a little bit of understanding of where you are, and then they're going to tell you how to proceed. And so, in a consultant, of course, is the expert. The mentor discipler, you guys know we do this all the time. We're asking good questions in mentoring discipling. That's why coaching and Chi Alpha works so well, because we're already pretty good question askers. Sometimes we're not really good listeners, and sometimes the questions we're asking are not actually because we listened to what they were saying. We just already had a good question, so we thought we'd ask it. So there's, that's kind of the mind shift that, you guys know what I'm saying, right? So that's kind of the mind shift that we're trying to make take place. But you guys know mentoring, discipling. I'm not going to describe it really, but it is still, the helper is still the expert. I have information that you don't have, which reminds me, Tools for Mentoring is free today. And so please take it. I am a high proponent of Tools for Mentoring. Curtis and I were the pilot group. So we got to see it before it was ever published. So teacher is right here in this too, right? Basically, a teacher might ask a good question, but for the most part, a teacher is really the expert, and they're telling you how to do the math problem, what the science solution is, or whatever. So again, I'm going faster than... but you guys can kind of fill in the gaps. Coaching is on the other side of the spectrum. As you can see, the client is the expert, and we're asking a lot of questions. We've talked about this. Let's look at this coaching mindset. Before I do, though, I want Abby to come. And you guys, have you just totally enjoyed the Rodriguez family? Okay. So I know Alex believes this, so I'm just going to say it, but Abby is very much the helpmeet. And so I want her to show, she just recently has been taking some coaching classes, and I want her to share a little bit of her perspective. Alex? Yeah. Alex said, I lost his name for just a minute. Alex, shared a little bit about his experience, but Abby's going to share it from her perspective.
Yeah, I just reworked this entire testimony because Alex did such a great job. But that's okay. No, this is truly from my the perspective more so of how coaching has impacted my life as someone that was coached and continues to be coached. I again came from Sam Houston, and I was becoming a campus pastor's wife for the very first time, and I had insanely amazing examples such as Mandy Stewart, Mary Gautreaux, and those women are angels. And I just came from this point of feeling really inadequate, and then coaching, it was just, without sounding too dramatic, was like Jesus parted the skies, manna falling from heaven in the form of coaching. And truly, it was the Lord knew I needed it. We had no concept of what coaching was at all. We were athletes. We're like, oh, coach, that sounds familiar, but it's entirely different. And so we jumped into this class about how to become certified coaches, Christian coaches. And as you will find out, in order to be a good coach, you also need to receive coaching yourself. And so we had this precious man that we are eternally indebted to, named Brian Pettit, who did our training, but also saw something in Alex and believed in us as pioneers, pioneering a whole state of New Mexico, that we needed coaching, and he was totally right. And we actually met with Brian it was every other week for 2 years, and I'm passionate about it because it significantly has changed my life. Just to paint a picture, again, I looked forward to our time so much. His name was Brian, and he always answered the phone. It was over a phone for an hour, and you can fill an hour. But he would answer the phone. He said, Abby Skittle. He called me Abby Skittle. I don't know why, but he said, Abby Skittle, what are we coaching on today? And it was just so liberating because as busy missionaries on campus and maybe even moms and fathers, that there is very few moments in our life where we have such an intentional time of someone just on the other line listening to you with no distractions, no interruptions. I knew he was on the other line and he was hanging on to my every word, no matter what it was, and that was so healing to me. So as a person being coached, it was insanely healing. And can you imagine, like, our students in this generation of the students that we're working with on our campuses, what a significant time that could be for them as well. And so that's all I really wanted to share. I believe in coaching wholeheartedly, and our biggest prayer for you today is, as we're learning what coaching is, and discipleship is what we do, and that's the vessel that we use, the vehicle, but coaching is a method that we use within discipleship. They're apples and oranges. It's something that we do within discipleship, but we pray that you walk out of that doors with a clear understanding of what it is. And if you need an invitation like Alex and I did, please receive this as thus. We need you. We need coaches. A part of our initiative within our National Chi Alpha is that when you're pioneering a campus, we're requiring you to be coached. But we don't have enough. We've got this greatest student awakening, and we're going to be planting all over the place. And so, and so we need you guys. We need you guys to coach and get on board, and it will change your life for you and for your students and your staff around you.
Thank you, Abby. I love Abby and Alex's stories because you guys know they're quality leaders, right? That's why Alex and Abby have just recently been invited to be the training director. But even training directors need coaches. So I think that's important to note. Hey, let's look at a couple things. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of mindset shifting that needs to happen. I want to introduce you to a book called Faith Coaching. Faith Coaching is by a guy named Chad Hall, Bill Copper, and Faith Coaching. Here it is on page 53. Actually, it's Chad Hall in this case. He describes 8 things, a mind shift that needs to happen in our lives for us to move into a coaching relationship. We're going to move from I understand things better than the other person does to I have some information and the other person has some information. We've actually already talked about that briefly in here. It's a very important mindset. Now, even though I have information, does not mean I always say the information in a coaching conversation. I might have the information, but I may not share it. The goal in coaching is to have them share and to dig deeper and to dig deeper. And then maybe I can keep the conversation going and the ideas going by maybe sharing one piece of my information, but only after they share 2 or 3 or 4 things themselves. So we may have information, but that does not mean we always share it. Another mindset shift that we must make is my goal is to get the other person to think the way I think. 2, my goal is to understand and help the other person clarify. Can you guys see this difference in how we are approaching a conversation? When we have a goal and we want someone to get there, the other person knows that. I remember having a conversation with a married student once, and her husband was less than motivated. And I just thought I had all the right answers. So I asked questions, but I asked such leading questions that I was trying to lead her to a conclusion. And that is what we have to get away from. I don't have the answer. I don't know where the end result is. They do. And I have to trust them, and I have to allow them to be creative enough and believe in them enough to be able to get to the place they want to go. One way I do this, and this is how I actually did my mentoring, and I've just moved it. I just see people with a crown above their head that they're growing into. It's like a visual picture I have in every conversation. I see a crown they're moving into, so they're moving into their crown, not my crown for them. Okay, so the third one is we're moving from I must maintain a mindset of evaluation and serve as a critic to what the other person says. 2, I must maintain a mindset of curiosity and openness to what the other person says. So this whole idea of evaluation, gosh, you guys know, you You picture yourself in a conversation where you're like, no, don't do that. That will go wrong. You know, there's a way in a coaching conversation to turn it if you feel like they're going to hit a disaster if they actually go that way, right? We can step in. I'm not saying let people ruin their lives, but it is us just sitting there and making judgment about where they're going and what they're doing. We are promoting self-discovery in these conversations, and if we are sitting there judging, they know it. And they are not going to be there. You're not building trust in the relationship. A fourth one, we're moving from people change when they get the right information to people grow when they recognize truth more clearly and are motivated to change. I love this one too. I love all of them, but people change when they get the right information. That has been my mindset for many years of mentoring. The little photographer girl that's been walking around, I don't know if you guys seen her. She was from our ministry in Montana. So I'm so glad she's not here right now when I just said that, because that's the way I mentored her and pastored her. It's like, she'll be great when she gets all the right information. So, hey, let's quickly, what time is it? What are we supposed to be done at a quarter after? Scary. We're not going to be done. Let me just I'll quickly try to wrap things up. On the coaching skill set, which we're not really going to get to, but this is kind of how it looks, okay? 80% of a coaching conversation is going to be active listening. And we're not going to get to really what active listening is, but you guys know what it is. It's listening with deeper ears. It's asking Jesus, what is the real situation here? It's very important in a conversation, a coaching conversation, that you're coaching the person and not the problem. And that's where Jesus comes into the mix. We're coaching the person and not really the problem. We're not trying to solve the problem. We're trying to coach the person. And it's a different mindset. So we're listening for what is not really being said. And then we're asking clarifying questions. You don't assume that what you hear is what is the truth. You're gonna hear from the Spirit, and then you're gonna ask a question that's gonna come from the listening part. The fact is too is you cannot have a coaching conversation that's kind of laid out. You know, you just can't have it, because you're listening to what they're saying, and the question that you're going to ask is going to be generated from what they're saying. And so you have to listen well in that case. So you're going to be 80% of the conversation. You don't get to talk. It's so freeing. It's so freeing for someone like me who's not a very smart person, if I can just say that honestly. So I'm just not a real theological or real deep thinker. I just like to have fun and have a good conversation. What do you feel about that? I'm kind of that way. So I don't have to have the answers. I just know how to ask the right questions. So 15% of your conversation is going to be you talking, asking powerful questions. And then there's two other pieces that are very important in coaching. One is encouragement. You guys, we do this anyway in every conversation that we're having. We always want to encourage the person. That's where their confidence is going to be built. Okay, they came up with something, and now you can encourage them. You have done a lot of hard work. Boy, you thought differently today. That was awesome. I really think that when you take if you take from here what we've talked about, I think you're going to really move forward in your life and your work. Concise messages, boy, those are those like 7-word sentences that are like way powerful. Something you notice, like, I wonder if you thought about it this way, what would happen? Okay, that's kind of more of a question more than a concise message. No, is that a question? It's a question. That's a question. That was not a good concise message, but it's just something 7 words or less, where it's just like you just kind of speak something that is in there. That again, that could really be a place where the prophetic word comes, for sure. Now we have to be careful, because if we're really doing talking only 20% of the time, the prophetic word is not like this. That does not you're not giving license to a 20-minute conversation, us telling them. Again, we have monologue. You'll have to be careful there on that one. We were going to talk a little bit about those 4 areas, and we're just not going to be able to get to it, which I apologize. I got winded. I do want to show you this in closing, and this is a framework for a coaching conversation, and basically, as Abby said, This top piece right here represents the question, what do you want to talk about today? Almost not every, because I'm in some mentoring coaching conversations right now that I don't always start this way, but if I'm doing a pure coaching session where I'm following this model, my first question is going to be, what do you want to talk about today? What's stirring in your life that you feel like, that you want to talk about? Somehow we start the conversation, because people come to the conversation with something that they're wanting out of the conversation. And a little bit, sometimes this is a little bit about training to the student a little bit so that they come prepared. So if you were to meet with Dick Schroeder these days, he would say to you, come with a question that you have for me to answer. Or, he wants you to come with something. And oftentimes in a coaching conversation, you can say to your students, I want you to bring something to the conversation. What do you want to talk about today? Be prepared for that. Then this section right in here, this part of the section, that is all about broad questions where you're asking them questions to kind of expand their thinking. It's creating new awareness in their situation. What about this? What about that? It's kind of the questions. If you did have $1 million, what would you want to do with it? Or some of those questions that Alex asked were really good. They were very broad questions trying to help the student expand their thinking. Then you get to this point right here, and it's a very narrow question. And in a pure coaching conversation, I'm going to ask this exact question every time. What do you want to take away from this conversation? I don't want to assume that I even know what they want, even after we've done this broad thinking. What do you want to come away from this conversation? So an example might be, I want to come away with the conversation, from this conversation, exactly what I want to buy my son for his 10th birthday. Okay, I've had that conversation. So what exactly do you want to come away from the conversation? This is such an important difference in our mentoring than in our coaching. And it's a very important question, because then it causes the conversation in our one-on-ones to be very directive, as opposed to just a nice conversation that we had over coffee. So again, once they come up with this, then you have to do a little bit of brainstorming. You have to identify some obstacles. You kind of have to identify where are they currently, and what obstacles are going to keep them from going to where they want to go. And that happens here. And then this bottom piece is actually designing steps. If you skip any of this part of the process, the conversation won't be as dynamic to the person being coached as if you would have hit all of those conversations. You want them to actually walk away with something that they're actually going to do. You can't move forward if you don't have next steps. So I'm going to give you a couple next steps. If you're interested in coaching, there's a couple things you could do. I would begin to look for opportunities in your current conversations to come at a coach approach. Ask a question and listen to the answer, and have another question, a follow-up question that actually responds to the person. Come that coach approach to your conversations. I think you can start coaching. It's interesting because you guys are very, limited in what a coaching conversation actually looks like, but I do think you can actually start doing it. Hey, I learned a couple new skills. Do you mind if I try it with you this next, can we have a conversation? Abby had a coaching conversation on the way into this class. She had someone stop her and say, what's the difference between coaching and counseling? And she said, well, let's just coach you right now. And how long did it take? 5 minutes? Maybe a 5-minute conversation, and they didn't actually come to action steps, but it was that first part of the hourglass, this part up here where it's the discussion of the widening of the question and trying to come to some sort of understanding of the problem. The other things is take a 501 class. It's the beginning coaching class. It's going to start October 6th. It's going to be an online class. Oh, I have to October 4th there. Oh, that is the right date. October 4th is the right date, sorry. That basic class is going to be on our chialpha.com/coaching. It will be on there. It's not currently on there because CMC actually rules the day. Coaching is important, but not more than CMC. The other one is to get a coach. Abby said it. The best way to learn coaching is to be coached. Practice coaching and be coached are the two things. So I would love for you to find a coach. This is the thing. I put my business card on everybody's chair. There's more in the back if you are sitting on the floor. There's also a handout back there that has just some information that we've kind of gone through, and there's a book list there that I handed out for you as well. If you have any questions, just feel free to call me. Obviously, the next day before we leave, you can connect with me. My email's here, and it's on the gift card. Not the gift card, the business card. Okay. I'll be around if anybody has any other questions. I'm sorry we kind of quickly tied up here at the end. Thanks for coming.